India today has been able to exclusively access this report, a report prepared by the ISIS think tank, which for the first time details in a very specific fashion how the ISIS hopes to establish its dominance in Kashmir. Now remember, this is something India's intelligence agencies have been fearing and talking about for a while now, but it's never been officially confirmed. Now the ISIS itself has put out a document amongst its supporters, which has been accessed by India today, where they detail how they hope to establish an Islamic State in Kashmir, or at least involve Kashmir in what they're calling a larger global jihad in favor of an Islamic caliphate. So sit back and watch as we bring you this India Today exclusive ISIS's Mission Kashmir revealed.
On India Today, we unearthed ISIS's nefarious recruitment drive in down south Kerala. Its heavily encrypted audio transmissions. Beware. Islamic State has even more dangerous designs for our country. India Today has accessed the ISIS blueprint to turn Kashmir into a caliphate. If its literature is to be believed, a wicked plot is underway to soak the valley in bloodbath. In a magazine, the terror group has called for carnage in the country's only Muslim-majority state. In this publication, the terror masterminds push their trademark narrative of hate and jihad. In a series of spiteful messages, the ISIS has tried to instigate a dangerous guerrilla warfare with the army. You are not fighting a strong army, but idol worshippers, drinkers of cow urine. These are the weakest forces. You must attack them. You must surround them. Wherever you find them, kill them. Follow them to the skies if you have to. So reads the ISIS dangerous incitement to potential terrorists. But that's not all. The terror outfit has also called for a war on liberal Islam, its moderate Sufi roots in the valley. Kill bad clerics who are only rumor mongers. Commit yourself into massacring them. Yes, that's how ISIS wants to pursue its agenda of a caliphate in Kashmir. A caliphate based on 8th century Islam and the Sharia law. Its Kashmir blueprint carries all the hallmarks of its global designs. The group does not spare even an Islamic Pakistan as part of its plan to build a base, its own terror forces in Kashmir. ISIS's Kashmir plot is loaded with its characteristic venom. Emboldened by the separatist-fueled unrest, terrorists are attempting to upstage the entire valley with their own brand of radical Islam. Look at this video, issued purportedly by militant commander Zakir Musa and his Taliban-e-Kashmir.
नौजवान लड़के और लड़कियां जीन्स पैंट मगरिबी तहजीब के अंदाज से बालों का सजना और संवरना.
Remember, Zakir Musa has recently declared Sharia as his sole goal for Kashmir. Pronouncements in ISIS publications and videos like this are cause for a new alarm, a new challenge for the security establishment to stem the influence on radical Islam on a tech-savvy young generation. With Rahul Kabal, Bureau Report, India Today.
The ISIS Kashmir blueprint being put out in the public domain for the first time, revealing from within the ISIS what the thinking around Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is. So far, we've heard the assessment of the Indian intelligence agencies. For the first time tonight, we are hearing what the ISIS itself has to say and how it hopes that Kashmir will become the next big frontier. To talk about this one threat which India simply cannot afford to ignore, I'm joined on this broadcast by Dr. Wail Awad. He's a journalist, understands the Middle East and what's happening there. better than most. Also with us, the security expert RSN Singh. Shabnam Lone is a lawyer and activist. Kuldeep Khoda is the former Director General of the Jammu and Kashmir Police. He's joining us on this broadcast. I want to go across to Mr. Khoda first, because the documents that I've accessed, Mr. Khoda, are very scary, revealing the devious thought inside the ISIS. Because what they're essentially trying to do is tell people that these Pak proxies, the Hurriyat, they're too weak, they can't do anything. The Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Hizbul Mujahideen are backed by the ISI, they can't do anything. They're saying the ISIS is the real deal. They're trying to encourage youngsters to switch over in favor of a global Islamic state. This coming as it does just weeks after Zakir Musa put out a tape saying he's breaking away from the Hizbul Mujahideen and joining the ISIS. This morning, Mail Today, our sister publication, says he's already got about a dozen terrorists with him. What do you make of ISIS's Mission Kashmir?
First of all, we should be very clear about it that we don't have to dismiss this sort of threat or document which has come to the fore, which has come to the knowledge of India today. Because if we look backwards, since last about 2 years, the flags of ISIS have been shown in various demonstrations in Kashmir, particularly in Srinagar and some other areas in South Kashmir especially. And if you look at several other intelligence inputs which reveal that the influence of IS is gradually but surely growing in Kashmir, the inputs also suggest that since last 6 months or so, the chats between the youth of Kashmir and the handlers in Syria and Iraq are increasing. Some of the areas which have come in focus for this chat are villages in South Kashmir. Then in North Kashmir, the Sopore region has come in focus. In Central Kashmir, Lar and Prang areas of Gandarbal, they have come in focus. And even in Jammu region, the areas of upper reaches of Riyasi, Kishtwar and Doda have come in focus. The chats are going on. And if you look back at another development, last month at the grave of a killed Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist, two persons appeared who had concealed their faces with guns and made a short speech to the audience. The thing which they mentioned is of significance. They said, Pakistan should not be supported. Don't raise pro-Pakistan slogans. We have to be governed by Shariat law, and we have to follow the rules of IS. And as you rightly said in the beginning, the 5-minute 40-second video clip of Zakir Musa, that is also a telling tale of the
absolutely. RSN saying, you know, usually in Kashmir we see Hizbul Mujahideen, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed very often act in concert because they're controlled by the same puppet masters, the ISI. The ISIS, of course, trying to tell potential recruits, we are the real deal. This is controlled by the ISI. They're no good. Forget them. How much of an impact do you believe this document that India today has been able to access will have in giving the ISIS some shape in Kashmir? So far, it's mostly been sprouting on its own, some isolated ISIS flags. How much do you see happening now in concert, Mr. RSN Singh?
No, firstly, let me clarify this, that none of the jihadi groups are in competition with one another. Well, at the lower levels, they may not be knowing about the linkages, but at the higher levels, you know, it is. Remember that there is no phenomenon called local jihad. Every jihadi organization in import is a global jihadi organization. What is the difference between ISIS or say Lashkar-e-Toiba is that Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, they have their catchment areas, say Sialkot, Bhawanpur, and you know Hizbul Mujahideen has a catchment area in the Kashmir area. And while the Islamic State, you know, it has been deliberately, it has been propped up to attract educated youth and people who are media savvy and, you know, social network savvy, because that is the medium of indoctrination. So therefore, I mean, the other difference is that, see, Lashkar-e-Toiba's area of operations is very limited, or Jaish-e-Mohammed's area of operations is very limited, while Islamic State goes and seeks out targets far and wide. And this Ramzan, if you have seen, I mean, if you have been following, 2 attacks, to begin with in Baghdad, then you had two attacks in jihadi attacks in London, 2 attacks in Kabul, then you had Fidain attacks in Srinagar, 1 attack in Manila, and of course 1 attack in Iran. So it's, look at the spread. Look at the spread. So to say that Zakir Musa is just an odd and fleeting phenomenon, well, I must tell you, forget what he has said. I mean, he has whatever is happening in Kashmir has reverberations now in southern part of India. Do you know one new organization, again owing allegiance to Al-Qaeda, which is again, I mean, ISIS is basically a part of Al-Qaeda, on the overall arching philosophy of Al-Qaeda. So you had blasts in 4 judicial courts in response to, say, killing of Burhan Wani. That's what they have said. And then you had people going from Kerala to join the ISIS in Afghanistan.
We've already seen
So
that.
it is
while
all
Kerala
linked.
was
We
the
are
first
in
pocket.
throes of
We had a story out last week where we had Abdul Rashid trying to reach out to people in Kashmir, try and win them over. Now we're seeing this document targeting Kashmir. India, which has so far been relatively immune to the evil designs of the ISIS, suddenly seems to be on the ISIS radar much more than earlier. What are you making of this, Mr. Awad?
Well, they have been in the radar for a long time, but thanks to the Indian Muslim people, whom they feel they are Indian first before they being a Muslim or a Hindu, they already decided not to, they decided to distance themselves from Al-Qaeda. We have some recruitment that went to Syria and Iraq. We know that for sure there are a few Indian who have reached that area, which exceeded 60 to 65 people. Among them, some of them carried suicidal operation, but most of them were from Kerala, from Hyderabad, and from Bengal. But fortunately, that if we look at the majority of the Indian, they have refused and they have rejected Al-Qaeda before, and they will reject IS as well. But having said that, I wouldn't have excluded among the youth who are being exploited on the networking, as your distinguished guest has putting it up. Yes, there was some recruitment, and recruitment continue, but I believe the general perception is that most of the people now believe that IS in Syria and Iraq is receding, they're losing territory. There is no more something called Islamic State, and this year it will show the end. But the worries is those mercenaries who have joined in fighting along with the IS, the terrorist organization in Syria, they might think to come back. Secondly, which is also important, that IS have emerged in Afghanistan, also fighting along or against the Taliban, which also trying to establish itself as an organization to reckon with. So if these are getting closer,
very, very good point Wail Awad makes, because the battle of the coalition forces against the ISIS is diminishing the land they occupy. So the physical space occupied by the Islamic State is actually diminishing, and Shabnam Lone at the same time they're attempting to increase their mental space by reaching out to new and new frontiers, where so far they haven't been able to make serious inroads. What are you making of this India Today exposé?
Well, I think I would handle it on a two-way basis. First of all, ISIS as a pan-global ideology, unfortunately, is beckoning, alluring and attractive to some Muslims. And it is surprising that most of the Muslims who were born in Europe, in London, in America, they are the ones who got attracted to it first. And then they found a place in Raqqa. It seemed to some that it was a possibility, this extreme form of violent Wahhabi Islamic extremism, through which they thought that they would have a separate Islamic state in the world. Now, throughout the world, there are many people who got attracted to it. If you have some people in Kashmir who get attracted to it, I wouldn't be surprised. But let me assure you, this Zakir Musa fiasco that is being played all around, ultimately it will be Sayyid Salahuddin who will handle the issue. And Zakir Musa will have to fall in line with what Sayyid Salahuddin propagates. I've seen those three young men with their faces covered talking about, taking extreme steps. As much as I believe in the Kashmir society, as much as I believe in the Kashmiri Muslim who basically believes in inclusivity and plurality, I'm sure the Kashmiri society will rise to it, and we will not allow them this extreme form of Wahhabism.
Khuda, one of the big fears really is that, with what we're already seeing at a lower level in this battle between Sabzar Bhatt on the one side, Zakir Musa on the other, Sabzar Bhatt now dead, and the battle between, you just have to look at these documents of the ISIS. They're talking about the Pakistani army, the ISI, about how they are infidels, they have their own interests, they're not serving the larger Islamic interests. This is a new frontier, a dangerous new zone we're entering. In fact, Kashmir's newest nightmare, where you've got the ISI with its own game plan, you've got the ISIS with its own game plan, you've got these two warring ideologies trying to take on each other. So India has to deal with the ISI and its puppets, and then the ISIS. Mr. Kuldeep Khuda, do you hear me, sir? Did you get that question?
Yeah, absolutely. The point you have raised is very relevant. After the Zakir Musa video came out, the United Jihad Council Supremo, Sayyid Salahuddin, came out with a statement that the conflict in Kashmir, or the so-called freedom struggle which is going on in Kashmir, is totally indigenous and it is local. And the three Hurriyat leaders also gave a joint statement that we have nothing to do with Al-Qaeda or with IS, and it is purely local, and it's a freedom movement, so-called. But we don't have to overlook the dangerous proportions in which the IS try to spread in other areas. And given the background where ISI has different sort of interest in Kashmir, where it wants to project the Kashmir, so-called Kashmir struggle as a sort of local freedom movement, and on the other hand, IS wants to have pan-Islamic movement spread as a part of the global movement, there is bound to be some conflict. And
what do you make of this? ISI versus ISIS. ISI with its own puppet terror organization, the ISIS now trying to make it seem as if the ISI is only doing what Pakistan wants, not what the larger Islamic cause demands. How do you see this play out in Kashmir? RSN Singh.
You're asking me?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Firstly, 2-3 points I must say here. That, Rahul, what is the equation now between the military intelligence establishment and the jihadi groups in Pakistan? The jihadi groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed have clearly said that, even Haqqani group, that okay, we will carry out your strategic agenda with our whatever military means we have, jihadi means we have. But on global jihad, they have categorically told the ISI that we will not take your bidding. And you'll be surprised to know that the structure of Islamic State in this subcontinent, in Pakistan, Afghanistan and Indian region, was created together by Hafiz Saeed and the ISI. You will also be surprised to know that Islamic State cadres are operating in Balochistan out of Frontier Corps barracks. So it's a very, very complex arrangement. The second thing is that when you talk of Kashmir or the Kashmiri youth getting attracted, they have made 2-3 of them have gone to Syria. So it is not, Awad Sahab, it is not the territory, whether how much territory they have lost. It is the idea of ISIS which is refusing to die. It is expanding.
But how do you see this dynamic play out? So far India was up against the ISI. Now you've got a second enemy to confront, one who's at odds. If you look at this, they're calling Hurriyat Pak Pittus. They're calling them proxies. They're going after the Lashkar-e-Taiba. They're targeting the Hizbul Mujahideen. How do you see this dynamic play out? Terrorist versus terrorist, the ISI versus the ISIS.
No. They have never gone.
Wailawad.
They were never
Well,
gone after.
let me put it this way. Actually, let me put it this way. I would like to take the word of a global jihad. I think the global jihad terminology has been used in Afghanistan with the 1979 when the Americans start supporting Al-Qaeda and also supporting Taliban, and with the ISI and the Saudi intelligence. That was the first time where a global jihad was used in contemporary history. Therefore, if we look at it from those angles, we know there are certain countries which wanted to let Islam be spoiled and putting the name of Islam among these people. I think the important part here is that we should understand that if terrorists will be spread all over the world, but if the ideology will remain, if you do not charge or you do not address the hub center of the terrorism and where this ideology coming from, then you will be facing the music. That is the message. It should be understood. I think you need everybody on board to come
finally,
for an awareness program.
Your sense of
India,
how this challenge should be confronted with. What do you believe needs to be done? We have a challenge, make no mistake about it. How do you believe India should deal with this?
Yes. You're very right. It is a challenge. But I think it is the society, you know, in the Muslims on Friday you have congregations, we have ijtimas and we have ijtihad, what our Prophet taught us. I think it is incumbent upon all the Muslim clergy, the Muslim society as a whole, to teach the real essence of Quran, to teach the real Islam and the message that follows it, and to derive this ISIS philosophy, which you can pummel and kill people, but it, I agree, as a thought process is still very much there. So I think the society's blend in coming out and teaching the real tenets of the Quran and the Prophet and the Sunnah to the young men so that they themselves derive this philosophy is one of the best ways possible out.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. This is a story you'll be hearing a lot more about in the days to come. And remember, you saw it first here on India Today, this ISIS Mission Kashmir document spelling out their strategy for Kashmir, first time in as many details. A very worrying new frontier for India to have to deal. Welcome back. You're with us on the newsroom. Farmer fury spreading further. One more death reported today in Mandsaur in Madhya Pradesh. One of the farmers who were injured passed away because of his injuries. As the news of the death spread, protests spread to new regions of the state. A mob on the outskirts of capital Bhopal turned violent after the police tried to disperse them. Many vehicles were set on fire on the Bhopal-Indore highway on Friday morning. Traffic has been suspended on this stretch. Meanwhile, curfew is being relaxed in Mandsaur, the ground zero of the protest. Over 150 people have been arrested in connection with the violence. The central government has rushed 1,100 personnel of the Rapid Action Force to the state. In the midst of all of this, the political blame game has been exploding as well. So far, we had the Congress attacking the BJP for allowing the situation to spiral out of control. Now the BJP has put out a series of videos which allegedly show local Congress leaders on the ground in Madhya Pradesh inciting these crowds to violence. Here's the story.
पथराव करवा रहे हैं आप? एक गरीब फल वाले का फल लूट लिया उन्होंने। कितने लूट लिया?
This is damning proof of inciting violence. 3 Congress leaders caught on camera trying to instigate violence in volatile areas of Madhya Pradesh. Take a look at this Congress leader from Ratlam, brazenly asking for his supporters to burn police vehicles.
ये दम रखना कि अगर एक भी गाड़ी आ जाए तो आग लगा दो, जो होगा जो देख लो। कोई भी किंतु परंतु थाना पुलिस कोई डरने की जरूरत नहीं। और कल तक मेरी अरेस्टिंग हो जाएगी तो आप सब लोगों की जवाबदारी है। तो आप सब लोग ये किंतु परंतु वाले शब्द निकाल दो, जंग में सब जाएगा।
An FIR has been filed against him, but he is still roaming free. Now listen to another Congress leader, Shakuntala Khatik, MLA from Shivpuri, who eggs on supporters to set a police station on fire, even as the cops try to reason with her. Provocations come from another Congress leader, Jeetu Patwari. Listen to him taking on an on-duty cop and then defending himself.
आपने शांति का बोला था, मेरे को गारंटी दी थी, गारंटी है कुछ नहीं होगा, पूरे शहर में उड़दंगी हुई, गुंडागर्दी की गई है, लोगों को परेशान किया गया, बहुत गलत है, आप रिस्पांसिबल, यू हैव टू टेक द रिस्पांसिबिलिटी, लीजिए आपने गारंटी ली थी, आप अभी ये पुलिस को संभालो, मैं तो संभाल रहा हूँ, मेरा काम है वो, आप मत चिंता कीजिए, लेकिन नहीं बिल्कुल मेरे से लड़ने की जरूरत नहीं, विधायक जी आपने गलत किया, आपका काम करो, मैं करूँगा अपना काम।
भैया मैंने कुछ किया ही नहीं तो सीरियसली क्या लेंगे, मैंने तो किसानों की मांग के साथ पहले दिन से थूमा और आखिरी सांस तक रहूंगा। रही बात उकसाने की, ये बीजेपी का एक प्रोपोगेंडा है, इस तरह की बात करके अपने धर्म से वो शिवराज सिंह बच नहीं सकते हैं। उन्होंने गोलियां चलाई है लोगों पे, लोग सड़क पे आए, इतनी ताकत से आए, कितना अंदर से गुस्सा होगा।
Incidentally, Patwari is the same person who gave a pillion ride to Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi on Thursday, who was en route to meet farmers in Mandsaur.
Congress
एक गाड़ी आ जाए तो आग लगा दो, जो होगा जो देख लो। थाने में आग लगा दो, थाने में आग लगा दो।
Yes, the police opened fire and killed farmers, and the state government must answer for that. But the Congress must also answer for the wanton violence in the state. Did they actively aid and abet the unrest to ensure that Madhya Pradesh went over the edge? With Vijay Kumar Meena in Ratlam, Preeti Chaudhary and Hemendra Sharma, Bureau Report, India Today.
The opposition's role needs to be seriously investigated, but what cannot be contested is that there is anger amongst the farmers. The opposition can try and fuel it, but unless there is inherent underlying anger, the farmers would not have reason to be agitated. Shivraj Singh Chauhan is now saying he'll sit on a hunger strike from tomorrow onwards. He wants that peace be restored to his state. In the midst of all of this, our reporters on the ground in Madhya Pradesh went out to the families of those who died in the farming, in this firing in Mandsaur. This is what they had to tell us.
Poonam Chand, Satyanarayan, Kanhaiya Lal, Chain Ram. These are not just names, these are people. Their lives snuffed out in the Mandsaur violence. Killed in protests demanding their rights. Among them was a 17-year-old Abhishek Patidar. A class 12 biology student, Abhishek had only one wish. He wanted to be a doctor. But his dream was dashed on June 6th.
पुलिस है जिन्होंने गलत एक्शन लिया है, बिना वार्निंग किसी वार्निंग के फायरिंग की है निहत्थे किसानों पर, उन्हें कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दी जाए। किसानों के साथ न्याय होना चाहिए। मेरा भाई का बलिदान बेकार नहीं जाना चाहिए। तो पूरा किसान आंदोलन है, किसान तो थे।
While their killers roam free, the MP government has admitted that police firing killed these young men.
It was indeed the police personnel who fired upon the agitating farmers. This thing has been established beyond reasonable doubt that the firing happened from the side of the police.
As netas are busy politicking, the families of those killed can hardly come to terms with their loss. Some of them even waited for hours for Rahul Gandhi to arrive in Mandsaur on Thursday, in the hope of finally getting justice.
हम कब से 2 घंटे से खड़े हैं, सुबह से खाना भी नहीं खाया हमने, ना पानी पिया।
मिलने दे हमें कि वो मिलना चाहते हैं, हम मिलना चाहते हैं, तो फिर क्यों नहीं मिलने दे रहे?
जो पुलिस वाले थे उन पे हत्या की आरोप लगाया जाए और केस चालू किया जाए 302।
The politics will fade after a while, but for these people, their loss is irreparable. Will they ever find answers to who is responsible for dreams cut short? With Supriya Bharadwaj and Hemendra Sharma, Bureau Report, India Today.
These are the real faces of this tragedy. And yes, there is this unseemly political blame game that's going on. But the reality is that agrarian distress has been building up for a long while. It's now just exploded. Let's shift our attention to the SCO summit in Kazakhstan. Prime Minister Modi attacked Pakistan without naming Pakistan. He blamed our neighbor for terrorism in the South Asian region. He also had a bilateral dialogue with Chinese President Xi Jinping, in which apparently Beijing promised to work with India to resolve outstanding disputes. Gaurav Sawant, our strategic affairs editor, files this story from Astana in Kazakhstan.
आतंकवाद मानव अधिकारों तथा मानव मूल्यों के सबसे बड़े उल्लंघनकारियों में से एक है.
Without naming Pakistan, Prime Minister Modi cornering Islamabad over the issue of terror at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. Addressing the meeting, Prime Minister Modi asked member nations to make coordinated efforts to defeat terror. Soon after Modi, Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif also addressed the meeting but played the victim card.
आतंकवाद मानव अधिकारों तथा मानव मूल्यों के सबसे बड़े उल्लंघनकारियों में से एक है. जब तक हम सभी देश मिलकर इस दिशा में कोऑर्डिनेटेड तथा सशक्त एफर्ट्स नहीं करेंगे, तब तक इन समस्याओं का समाधान असंभव है.
We fully endorse the SCO's resolve to fight the twin evils of terrorism and extremism. Pakistan has fought its own fierce war against international terrorism and violent extremism. And with the grace of God, we have been able to turn around the security and economic situation in our country.
When Modi and Nawaz were making their statements, something caught the eye of the people present. A Pakistani army brigadier, Akmal Aziz, suddenly walked in and whispered something into Sharif's ear. Though what transpired between them is not known, it is evident who calls the shots in Pakistan. The army, definitely not Sharif. Not just Pakistan, Prime Minister Modi even had a word of advice for China.
हम चाहते हैं कि कनेक्टिविटी हमारे देशों की भावी पीढ़ियों तथा समाजों के बीच सहयोग तथा विश्वास का मार्ग प्रशस्त करे.
A reference to Chinese investments in Gilgit-Baltistan, Indian territories illegally occupied by Pakistan. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Modi had held a bilateral meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Their first talks after India boycotted the high-profile Belt and Road Forum meet held in Beijing last month.
India-China relations are a factor of stability. And as the world becomes more multipolar, it was important for India and China to work together more closely.
This was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first meeting with the Chinese President Xi Jinping after India stayed away from China's One Belt, One Road initiative. India conceded there are differences with China, but insisted if handled well, they could become opportunities and not disputes. India did not take up specifics of nuclear suppliers group and Maulana Masood Azhar in this meeting with the Chinese president, but insisted that China is aware of India's critical concerns and hopes that at the level of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, there will be more of the spirit of cooperation to sort out issues that still persist.
On Friday, India and Pakistan were formally made members of the China-dominated security grouping. During the day, pictures of Modi and Nawaz Sharif shaking hands and exchanging greetings at the Astana Opera had surfaced. On Thursday, Prime Minister Modi and his Pakistani counterpart had a brief interaction when Modi inquired about Sharif's health.
The Indian and the Pakistani Prime Ministers did shake hands, but clearly there was no meeting of the minds. Prime Minister Narendra Modi did inquire about Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's health, welfare and about his family and mother. At the same time, there was no talk about resumption of dialogue between India and Pakistan. Pakistan is seeking resumption of the comprehensive bilateral dialogue, but India insists this can only happen in a terror-free environment. Until there are decisive measures taken by Pakistan to address India-centric terror, dialogue will not resume. With cameraman Kirpal Singh at Astana, Kazakhstan, Gaurav Sawant
for India Today.
With us on the newsroom, a few days after the Central Bureau of Investigation conducted raids at the office and residence of NDTV founders Pranoy Roy and Radhika Roy, several journalistic bodies came together, jurists, editors, in support of NDTV and in support of the larger idea of free press. Led by legal luminaries like Fali Nariman, several of the country's top journalists, editors, condemned attempts being made by the government to intimidate the media. The Press Club of India put out a joint statement in which it said that it's hoping that all facts of the case will be presented in the public domain and the CBI will not harass any media organization. The Indian Women's Press Corps said the instruments of the state should not be used to harass anyone in the media. NDTV has called the CBI raids a case of political witch hunt.
This is not about NDTV. This is a signal for all of us. And the fact that there's no case, that is a flimsy, ridiculous, concocted set of facts, makes it even bigger signal. They're trying to tell us we can suppress you even if you've done nothing wrong. That's the signal. Okay, if you do something wrong, we all deserve punishment. But they're telling you we will fix you even if you're innocent. Remember that signal and fight it. We must. And be clear, it is a signal for the entire free press of India. And boy, do we love the free press. It's the most beautiful thing about India. Very few countries have this. Let's not lose it. Let's treasure it.
A few years ago, when my wife and I attended the Commonwealth Law Conference in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, one of the delegates was a retired judge of Malaysia's Court of Appeal. And he told a crowded hall of over 1,000 delegates in the presence of the then Prime Minister, Mr. Mahathir, who, as you know, was not exactly a liberal. He said in a loud voice, "Our written constitution guarantees freedom of speech." Loud applause. Then after a pause, he added, looking towards his Prime Minister, "But it does not guarantee freedom after speech." This is exactly what happened. Freedom after speech is really what freedom of speech is all about. Please, all of you, never forget this.
This is not the time to sit in judgment on each other. I say this from the experience of my personal life. When you have to serve, your service must be absolutely non-judgmental. Because the mind suggests so many reasons as to why I did not help him. अरे यार वो cigarette सारी उम्र पीता था, अब उसको कैंसर होना ही है, now let him suffer. No, that's not the time to sit in judgment. You must go to the support and help and assistance and service of your friend. Because they will try to divide the press by insinuating such things, and they will use you, they will use the existing media to defame the rest of the media. So please do not become instruments in that.
Friends, Mr. Puri unfortunately is not in town and hence cannot attend this meeting. I am reading out a statement on his behalf. It reads as follows. I strongly believe that the freedom of the media is inviolable in a democracy, and any move to intimidate directly or indirectly is a cause for alarm and is against our democratic traditions. Such a move also undermines the basic tenets of free speech enshrined in the Constitution of India. I have always maintained that none of us in the media are above the law. The onus is on us to uphold the highest journalistic standards of fairness, balance and integrity combined with exemplary corporate governance. Thank you.
Now we know that press is the foundation of democracy, secular ethos. I remember independence movement when we were fighting about it. There was only idea of India. And what was the idea of India? Democratic and secular. Today, I am very happy that so many people are coming. But let's commit again to the same idea of India. This country must remain democratic and secular.
So this is a wake-up call. I think we should be cautious and vigilant about further attacks. And this should be undone, this kind of things. Which CBI is being used to curb the freedom of the press. There can't be anything worse.
Jurists, editors, journalists making it very clear that this seems to be an attempt to intimidate a free press. Of course, there must be a probe if there is wrongdoing. That wrongdoing must be punished. But a message also being sent, whether you've done something right or wrong, we will come after you. Journalists rising in unison against that move. This is where